Hello, everybody. Leo Laporte here. It's time once again for MacBreak Weekly's Best of 2020. One might think there wasn't much to talk about in 2020. Not a great year to relive. And yet, in the Macintosh world, there are some amazing stories. Starting off with a terrible keyboard, ending with a brand new chip, and we're going to cover the best of 2020 next. All this year, MacBreak Weekly has come to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 745 for December 22nd, 2020. Our year's best. Ho, ho, ho! Oh, ho, ho. Well, hello! How are you? It's time for MacBreak Weekly's Best of 2020. And I can tell you, this bottle was full at the beginning of the year, and it's been quite a year. Whew! But we did have a lot of fun with our MacBreak Weekly regulars, Andy Ihnatko, Renee Ritchie, Lori Gill, MacBreak Weekly's founder and original member, Alex Lindsay, and, of course, a cast of many others who came by from time to time. One of my favorite moments was right at the beginning of the year, the Oscars this year. Apple had a little cameo thanks to director Taika Waititi. I knew I shouldn't have had any of this. Take it away, Taika. Right after Taika Waititi wins an Oscar for Best Screenplay for Jojo Rabbit, he goes backstage, gives a press conference in which he announces he's got the world at his fingertips, the most bully of all pulpits. What does he say? They ask him, what would you like the Writers Guild of America to fight for? He says, you got to tell Apple, those keyboards suck. Finally, somebody's telling the truth at the Oscars. This is, it says he's joking. That sounds pretty serious.
No, he's not joking. You're
talking about a screenwriter. He spends a lot of time on his computer.
Wouldn't it have been great, though, if he did it like he did it in the Avengers, where he's doing the Korg voice going, Thor, Apple's not making good keyboards anymore, Thor. Can you ever talk with them? And then Thor puts on the headset and talks to Tim Cook and says, listen, you make good keyboards, or I'll be over there and I'll shove this hammer.
You gotta stop reading comic books.
And Tim would still say, we believe this is the best compromise between. Our customers love this keyboard.
I think it was the one useful thing that was said during the Oscars.
That's a huge. Yeah, the Oscars were horrible, but this is
that's a huge. This is a
huge black eye for Apple, and Apple, by the way, which is opening offices in Culver City, along with some of these other streamers because they want to be in Hollywood. They had to be cringing on this.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, is there anybody who's willing to say that Taika Waititi was wrong? He could get a better keyboard.
But you also want to point out like how much dominance Apple has when he had to find one person over on the side that doesn't use a Mac to write everything that they do.
If there's a silver lining, he's not willing to move to a Lenovo ThinkPad, which has a better keyboard. He wants to use a Mac.
He didn't say, I have moved over to a PC.
No.
He said,
that's the bigger problem. If he'd said, I love Dell keyboards, that would have been a way worse problem for us.
Yeah. You're right.
You got to look at the silver lining there.
I just can't imagine what it must have been like for those entertainment journalists to hear that. Like, what?
They're cringing.
We're supposed to be talking about movies right now.
They're cringing.
Computers. What's going on?
They're probably nodding their head because they're writing their articles on a Mac, talking to screenwriters who all write everything on a Mac. So they're all in the same.
But how do I put this in Deadspin?
I also feel bad for the engineers at Apple who work on that keyboard because they're doing the best they can. I've complained as loudly as anybody else about it, but I understand that this is some teams, like, this is what they do all day long. And just when they start to get some positive reviews over the latest generation of their really bad idea for a keyboard, now again, this is all over the news because he didn't say it as a quick quip and then let's talk about serious issues news about the WGA negotiating for better for more rights and more respectability with the studios. It's like, no, I am on this. I thought I was just going to stop after one line, but I've tapped into a deep-seated well of pain here, and you've got thousands of people nodding and saying, yes, I love you. I'm buying your T-shirt. I'm subscribing to your seminar. So I have to. You don't like to be called out on a project that you worked really hard on, you're doing your best on, and you got to take a turn in the donkey booth. But that's
Andy, you're taking empathy way too far on this one. I don't feel bad for the engineers. This is a problem. It couldn't be any worse. Presumably, Apple is going to make all of the next laptops have. Because do we agree that the new 16-inch keyboard at least is usable? Nobody asked him about that. Taiki, if you're listening, Waititi, what do you think of the new one? Have you?
Yeah,
he can afford to get the new one.
It's way too big a computer for him. No, but it's way too big a computer for a normal, an average writer.
He wants an Air. Yeah.
Yeah, an Air or even a 13-inch. I mean, I don't think many people who are just writing want to carry a 16-inch laptop.
Will the new Air? What do you think? Will they all have?
I'm really hoping, because they hedged. Like they were hedging a lot about how Butterfly weren't to ban, and I don't know if that's just face saving. Hedging about how Butterfly still has its place and it's still important. But this, they think, is a more pro, because there's no such thing as a more pro. People write on smaller laptops. Those are pro laptops too. So my hope is that Magic Keyboard all the things as fast as possible. And if they were holding any desire to keep the Butterfly keyboard around, even for ultra thin new computers that they're working on, I just hope they abandon all those plans.
I don't even know how you could write a whole script on a Butterfly keyboard.
Apparently, I can write a ton on it.
He evidently did, but
it's fine for me. But I don't like that other people hate it.
Yeah.
If in the last act your main character becomes an absolute psychopath and wants to kill everything in the world, I think that would be an asset. But otherwise,
no. But I've written like 2 million words on those Butterfly keyboards, and they don't bother me at all. But it is. Like I said before, if other people don't like them, if a large percentage of other people, there's no other manufacturer you can go to for a Mac laptop. So that is a complete deal breaker. You have to have a keyboard that maybe not every single person loves it, but nobody has any problem with it whatsoever.
I've had one. I got it right when it came out, the 12-inch or whatever, and just, I could write notes on it and stuff like that, but I immediately was just like, it became an extra laptop really quickly because it was just so, it drove me so crazy.
Well, many of us ended up, dragging our 2015 MacBooks out of
Still have it. And now I'm going to get the 2016.
I just feel vindicated because Andy and I have been bitching about this keyboard for like a year, 2 years. And finally, here's an Oscar winner actually taking the time in his press conference where he's being congratulated for getting best original screenplay. And that's what he says.
Some people talked about the climate. Some people talked about Trump. Took on an important subject here and talked about keyboards.
Apparently,
I
learned that we're artificially inseminating cows. I didn't know that. So that's,
Was Tim Cook there like he was with Ricky Gervais?
I know. That would be scary. Poor Tim had to sit through Ricky Gervais. I saw Jeff Bezos in the Oscar audience. I don't think Apple was nominated for anything. So there was no reason. Did you hear what
they said to Bezos? That he thought the Marriage Story was fiction or something? That was like that.
Well, at least he used his time in his Oscar speech on a problem that's actually capable of being solved.
Something we can do something
that you don't have to be you have to be a real cynic to think that we will never be able to figure out how to build a decent keyboard for a MacBook. Whereas, again, global warming, good luck, great grandkids. Sorry about the mess, but you're going to have to deal with it.
I thought Steve Martin's comment that he didn't want to say anything bad about Amazon because he still wants to get his packages on time. That was the best line in the whole thing.
Steve is a down-to-earth guy. He really means it, I'm sure.
And why is anyone not hosting the Oscars? Oh, because of Twitter.
Did you read? I bet you did, because you seem like this kind of people. Apple's tech reports on the Mac Pro and the Mac Pro Display XDR. You of course.
I tried, but
cover to cover, right?
I made so much coffee, Leo.
I actually started, but I couldn't get very far. Renee, how far did you actually get in?
Oh, I read them. I read through them. I can't say I understood everything, but I read through them.
There's so much technical jargon in there.
Yes. It's a PDF, which we will now proceed to do a dramatic reading of.
Can you do a Patrick Stewart voice?
Introduction. Mac Pro was developed with a singular purpose.
As you can see, the peak of the red curve.
You know what? I would pay somebody to audible this.
I'll listen to it in the car. I wonder if Apple would get mad at me if I recorded it.
Oh, you should do it.
I will.
Do it.
What kind of voice should I do?
If you don't, I will.
If they try to tell you to take it down, it will make it more popular.
I think it should be dramatic.
Remember to say aluminium, Leo.
Yeah, I'll say aluminium. Up to 28 core Intel Xeon W processor.
With over 6 different drive bays.
Oh, you're going to do the Sean?
All for perfect expandability.
He's going to do the Sean Connery version.
We should do a whole bunch of versions.
Oh, yes, indeed.
I'll do the Chewbacca version.
What the hell is that damn teddy bear doing in this studio?
Mac Pro?
Mac Pro was designed.
I'm not
Tackle the most demanding pro workloads designed it is.
What's happening right now?
This is all we have left, Lori Gill. Please.
So did you learn, Renee, anything from... I mean, actually, if I had a Mac Pro, I would enjoy this. I'd print it out, tape it to the side. Did you learn anything that we didn't know?
I mean, there's just lots of detail. Up until now, we were mostly getting information from people who bought them and either wrote about them on blogs or podcasted about them or YouTubed about them. And they could make a lot of educated guesses. And some of them were really good educated guesses about what exactly Apple was doing. And while they don't totally open the kimono here, because Apple still doesn't explain why they made the choices they made all the time, they do explain a lot of the underlying technologies. And it's pretty much what we expected. It is a miracle of engineering that applies to maybe 0.1% of computer users.
There is an expansion slot utility on the new Mac Pro that explains how to take advantage of the fabric, the switch fabric of PCI Express. I mean, I guess if you had a Mac Pro, if you're somebody like Alex who needs, a lot of bandwidth throughput, this would be useful to see and understand.
I'm blanking on his name, the scientist who did the review. Gruber linked to it the other day, where he was doing modeling of wind simulations, and he said it used to take him like a room full of Mac Pros. He had to put a window air conditioner in the room just to be in the same room with them. And this ran in, I forget what he said, but it was something like 14 hours on the Mac Pro. Never got noisy. Fans never were annoying. And it was 28 cores and 900 and something gigabytes of RAM. And it did what a supercomputer used to do for him. So he was really happy with it. But again, like that's the specific user that it was built for.
Yeah. And the 46 pages, including footnotes, of this document is something that somebody who owns a Mac Pro and wants to get the maximum out of it probably would want.
Or someone looking at it, or someone trying to sell it to their boss about why we should get it. Here's the paperwork to show that. Because what this is a communication to professionals that we didn't give up on you. Because there were a lot of us that were like, well, we're just going to have to go to PCs for everything. And a lot of people have, because they just didn't have the horsepower. The Mac Pro wasn't ever going to do that. The iMac, even the iMac Pro wasn't going to get there. And so a lot of people were looking at what happens after the Mac platform for them in the professional area. And now this says, hey, you don't have to go.
You're right, because there is some sell in this. Here's this paragraph from the display document. Apple Pro Display XDR reimagines the potential of a reference display, overcoming many of the limitations and delivering incredible front-of-screen quality, plus every feature requested by pros, all at an accessible price point. That's a little florid way of saying,
wonderful.
Yeah, right.
But it also answers some questions, because there were people were conflating whether it was mini LED or regular LED, and whether it was single layer or dual layer, and this just lays all of that out at least.
Yeah. There are some benefits to doing MacBreak Weekly, of course. One would assume that companies like Apple would send us slews of products. No. That we would get access to some of the early betas of some really cool software. No. But we do get peanut butter. So the reason
Star Destroyer.
We were talking GIF, is because we got some peanut butter in the mail.
Oh, you actually got some?
We got some peanut butter. It's been all over Twitter. Everybody's seen it by now. But I actually, the company that makes GIF, J-I-F, peanut butter, actually spent, this is brilliant marketing, by the way. You can see it includes not only the peanut butter, but a special spoon, peanut butter spoon, because that is actually how you're supposed to eat peanut butter. On the one side, their normal label, J-I-F, creamy peanut butter. Soft G pronunciation. On the far side, GIF, animated looping images, hard G pronunciation. And the Giphy branding.
Daily bread.
Isn't this hysterical? It's an actual jar.
Yes.
More than 2 pounds of peanut butter. And on the top it says, if you've ever called a GIF a GIF, we forgive you. Now, obviously, they don't care, right?
No.
I do.
I have to wonder what put the bug up their nose to like 18 years after this was a thing to suddenly pull the trigger on this idea.
Hey, they finally hired someone that was less than 50.
A millennial.
Yes.
You nailed it. They got a millennial in the marketing department.
Is it also amazing that after all these years we haven't replaced animated GIF ifs with anything better?
The pings will loop, right? You can do an animated ping.
Yeah, it's just
but no one uses them. GIF ifs are still the cliche. People fire them off immediately. They're in Slack, they're in messages, they're on Twitter, they're everywhere.
I know, it's too bad.
They're amazing.
It's a terrible format.
It's a terrible format, but it's really fun.
It is.
It's encumbered. For a long time, there was this issue because it was created for CompuServe.
CompuServe, yeah.
But somebody else had the patent to the way the compression algorithm worked. So it was encumbered by this patent, and I think there was a lawsuit. I think that's been resolved.
Well, the patent only lasts a certain...
But it doesn't... Yes, this is an ancient format.
Like from 1802.
Yeah. It doesn't actually compress very well.
No.
It's not a good format.
But nowadays, it doesn't really matter if it compresses well or not.
Plus, isn't it only 256 colors? I think it is.
But I think part of the beauty of it is that it's rough and it's just short and it doesn't have any audio.
It's a crap post.
It's internet nostalgia. Yeah.
Well, no, it's a great format because it works. That's we forget that it's nice to have things that are high tech and are high compression and have all the based on the latest research and the latest algorithms and papers. But all we needed was it would be funny, particularly in social media, to be able to respond to something by having that clip from Return of the Jedi of Han Solo going. And it's a perfect format for that. Everything supports it. It's well understood. The built-in media players of every operating system supports it.
No. That's not every operating system supports ping. Ping is ping. Everything supports animated pings. They're 24-bit, not 8-bit. They have 8-bit transparency.
Do we need it? And how are you going to talk?
Well, that's right.
Beta was better than VHS.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I can't remember what an actual legitimate newspaper wrote about how that GIF has come into resurgency because it is kind of the perfect format for naughty video clips that if for the opening of Baywatch. You just want to see the clip of the handsome buff men and women just running in slow motion.
You can say
you don't want to have to.
You can say it, Andy. Yep. There's no shame in Hasselhoff pecs.
Well, I don't. I have to. I don't know if his pecs have been recertified for social media yet.
Backwards compatibility with non-animated pings, simple to decode the default image. They tend to be smaller, much smaller than GIFs, but there are some short. Space. Yeah, full color space is 24-bit. I don't know. I think rather than this campaign GIF versus GIF, which benefits only peanut butter, why don't we have a campaign to get rid of animated GIFs?
I would argue that the young people aren't using them as much. It's kind of
I don't think they
starting
know
to get outdated. They're creating their own memes now, and GIFs aren't quite as GIFs or ifs aren't quite as important as they used to be. So you might get your wish.
I think that they don't even know that they are GIFs.
True.
I don't think that they're just the images that you insert into Facebook, or they're the images that you insert into Messenger or whatever. I don't think that they know that it is a thing. What format it is doesn't really matter anymore. It's just it's a link to a thing that does the thing.
All right.
I blame Reddit.
Let's talk about Apple.
He's in a bad mood now.
Can we put peanut butter on our apple?
I have to say this. Yeah, peanut butter on an apple is excellent.
But they sent you they sent you some peanut butter and we talked about it for 10 minutes. That is amazing marketing.
This is the second show we've talked about.
See, that's what I'm saying.
More than their miles.
Pixel 4 and the Domino's Pizza Box Tulio. Were you in on that one?
Whatever they're paying that marketing guy, not enough.
Not enough.
Enough.
On Sunday, Twit was 3/4 COVID-19. I'm not going to do that to you, but there is some coronavirus news. We'll just give it to you. We'll get it out of the way.
Very, very relevant this week, yes.
Well... Yeah, it's probably going to get more relevant
every week right now.
Before it stops getting relevant. bunch of stories in the Kofivi 19 column. Tim Cook outlines measures. He sent an internal memo outlining measures that Apple's taking in response to the global, what may be a pandemic. Work from home. He says this is a challenging moment, unprecedented event. Please feel, he told employees at several global offices, I imagine Italy's one of them, please feel free to work remotely if your job allows. That's got to be tough if your job doesn't allow.
Yeah.
Do you go in anyway and take a chance? Or?
Well, if your job allows, I think you get a large percentage of people able to work remotely for at least some period of time.
Certainly coders can work.
The hard part, I think, is that it's not
the
really
design
cultural.
lab is hard.
Yeah.
It's culturally not, most people at Apple go into work, so it's a different culture for that.
So because, and I think this is something we discovered, is that people who work at home often aren't doing much. It's hard. It's hard to get. I'm sorry, Lori, but it's true.
No, it's not true. You
It's
just
not
have
true.
the wrong people working for
Maybe
you.
that's it. Yeah.
It does take it takes a mentality, I think that to do it, where I actually do more work at home because I'm not spending the time driving, and I'm not spending, and I get up in the morning and start working, and then I work all the way into the evening, and there's little stops in the middle, but it's just a different kind of work. And also you have to be really good at being visible to the folks that you're working with.
That's the problem is if we can't see what you're doing and there's no obvious output, then we just can't tell if you're doing
My problem is
anything.
they don't stop. Like, wake up, start working.
Yeah, you
both
of you and Lori both have output. You've got vector, you've got articles, you've got editing. But if
easier to see
if we
the
have a sales, like my son, I'll use as an example, who was working home on Fridays, doing sales. Sales. There's no clear output. You either make sales or you don't.
Right.
So and I think that's anyway. This policy at Apple.
I had a remarkable conversation, Leo, where I was talking to an analyst, and they said, "Well, start preparing for a baby boom because after a lot of disasters,
what do people do when they stay home?
We have baby booms. So start investing in all those consumer packaged goods."
So I am the last baby boom. It was post-war. All the GIs came home, and suddenly there were a lot of babies 9 months later.
Yep. Then you had the Gen Xers, which were the next.
Was that a boom?
They were the children of the booms. So they
so that was a little less.
That
was like the ripples coming off of the baby boom.
Yeah.
But this
also
could be interesting.
Then the millennials came from when Seinfeld ended, and now people had nothing to do on Thursday nights.
Seinfeld and Leno was a double whammy.
So Cook's memo said this applies to corporate offices in the Santa Clara Valley, where that is probably outside of Seattle, the West Coast's hotspot. Elk Grove, which is also in California, Seattle, South Korea, Japan, Italy, Germany, France, Switzerland, and the UK. Cook said Apple's making this is interesting, a major effort to reduce human density and ensure those teams that are on site can do their work safely and with peace of mind. And in other words, spread out, because social distancing is another way to reduce infection. Apple's implementing, quote, new efforts to maximize interpersonal space and continuing enhanced deep cleanings. Now, one thing we didn't hear about is WWDC, although, and I don't know if this will be germane, but apparently Santa Clara County, which is where Apple is, has banned mass gatherings.
Well,
they've for a couple weeks.
On Thursday, was it a ban or was it just advisory? They released along with
a ban was yesterday.
Okay, I know that on Thursday they did a very, very long memo, basically not saying Apple, but saying Apple. We're encouraging you. We're encouraging large scheduled mass gatherings to be postponed or canceled. Yes,
kind of a hint.
I think it's only for 2 weeks, right? It's a short-term ban, and they're going to reassess in a couple weeks.
Yeah, if the virus goes away in 2 weeks, they can have WWDC.
So that
gets the March event off the calendar, and probably gets Google I/O, which has already been canceled. And
F8, Facebook's developer conference, Google I/O, Google's developer conference, both canceled.
South by Southwest.
South by Southwest. That was Austin saying we really don't want all those people coming down here.
Right, and that's going to be disastrous for. I mean, a lot of these for the like for instance.
Well, that's the thing. It's a big economic hit for a city to take, but at the same time, what do you do? Say, we need the restaurants business, but everybody can get sick. You can't do that either.
No, I think it's hard. Like for instance, NAB has not, the conference that I go to probably more than any other one, has not canceled yet.
Vegas is not going to say don't come to Vegas.
Well,
even if they should.
My guess is the commitment for LVCC is between $10 and $20 million. It's not like, and so they have to have LVCC release. That's Las Vegas Convention Center release NAB before NAB is going to be able to release the exhibitors. Like there's otherwise they'll never
like
have another
dominoes.
NAB. So having people cancel, like so Ross is canceled, AJA is canceled. There's a bunch of other people that are not going. In fact, the Ross one is a 40 by 40 booth in the center of the South Hall.
What's Ross? I never heard of them. What do they make?
Do? They're kind of between. No, they'll hate. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble from Ross to say this, but they are between Blackmagic and Grass Valley. So Grass Valley is like
a little higher level
high-end,
than Blackmagic, a little lower end than Grass Valley.
More expensive in price range, and definitely there's a lot of feature sets that they have that are really good, but they're usually considered like, I can't afford a Grass Valley, so I'll then they go to Ross, and Ross has got really great stuff, but they're kind of in that niche, and they're really big, and they do a lot of infrastructure.
How many people go to WWDC? Because Santa Clara says
it's like 100. I want to say 150,000.
Okay, so that definitely is above the cap. They say anything more than 1,000 people is banned. So that pretty much. Pardon me?
There's 7,000 tickets. And then
wait, you see WWDC or NAB? NAB is
WWDC.
120. No, WWDC is 5,000.
Okay.
But it's...
So I think that means whether Apple announces it or not, that means there's no Dub.
Well, they've only announced this for a few weeks, and Dub is traditionally in June. So, but the good news is Apple hasn't canceled anything yet because they never announced it.
There's nothing to cancel.
Right.
Yeah,
but that does put a lot of pressure on them. The fact that all these other conferences, Google I/O is just 1 month before, actually just a few weeks before WWDC, and so if Google is saying that out of a plurality, out of an abundance of caution, we're canceling the lots of humans getting together and exchanging handshakes part of it. What does Apple say? That we think that in 2.5 to 3 weeks it's going to be better, or we think that we can organize and run it in a way that is not going to create a health problem. But just like Alex said, they haven't announced anything yet, so they haven't canceled anything yet.
And also a lot of companies are instituting travel bans, especially the bigger ones. Like you're just not allowed to travel. They don't want to take on like the health. Yes, they're worried about the health, but also the risk of anything happening to you and them being held liable is just a showstopper for them.
Apple, and just the difficulty of moving people around, whether companies are doing travel bans or not. Just how all right. A lot of people are not going to.
I'm going to move through this quickly because otherwise it's going to be the coronavirus show. Apple is giving retail and hourly employees unlimited sick leave. This is something every company in this country should do. I know a lot can't afford to, but that's the right, and Apple certainly can. That's the right thing to do. Hourly employees shouldn't feel like they have to come in and risk, illness, or if they're ill, come in, and that's the real risk because they can't afford not to.
It's especially dangerous for Apple because they've been on this huge open concept design push for a decade. Like everything is open for them.
Apple has designed its own flat pack mask for healthcare workers, face shields, and he says we can manufacture these at a million of them a week. I'll just play a little bit of the Tim tweet because
before you do this, Leo, and before we get really serious, can I just say that it looks like he has Apple Retail version 2.0 quality shelves behind him for his sports memorabilia.
Oh, he does.
Which is just so on brand.
It's that beautiful
for
blonde,
that
beautiful blonde cedar and. Yeah, it's pretty cool. He also has a War Eagle Auburn signed basketball behind him. A couple of them, it looks like.
So Renee, are you accusing the CEO, Tim Cook, of like pilfering stuff from the Apple warehouse?
I think he built it himself. I'm now asking who built the shelves in all the new stores.
He did it by himself. Look, it's even got that nice embedded track lighting. Yeah, quite lovely.
And this video was better than the last video because he started and stopped it less awkwardly. Like he's improving his live Insta social feed content every week.
I have to say, though, I love it. That it has that thing where they start and then they sit back, and at the end they step forward and stop it. I'm guessing
you can edit those.
Yeah, I'm guessing that was almost an affectation,
Clips is
right?
Square. He wanted the vertical video, and Clips still doesn't support that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
I'm sorry, we'll get to the story we're supposed to be talking about, but while we're on this, don't you think that this is going to feed just like the iPhone and the success of the design of the iPhone was a response to how much Apple engineers hated their current Trio phones and their current Windows phones? Don't you think that Apple is going to have one hell of a killer new version of FaceTime or conferencing app just based on okay, there's got to be a way that our users don't have to reach up and touch something in order to get this. Can we AI our way around deleting that automatically?
This the face shield, according to the associate executive director of the Permanente Medical Group for Kaiser Permanente Northern California, helps preserve valuable personal protective equipment for a longer period of time. Smita Ruyard said it really renews your energy and your spirit. So they were very grateful. They were very grateful to have it. I think that's really cool. And it is, by the way, I want to point out, the thinnest face shield Apple has ever made. So there's a lot to be
said.
Great
battery life.
With a great battery life.
Right, he's gonna reach forward, stay safe, and stay healthy. We're not being insensitive.
We're laughing because we're crying.
Yeah. No, we're not insensitive. You know what? You have to be a little black humor in the face of all this, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's why I'm always looking at memes. I'm always looking at COVID memes. They just make me feel a little bit better.
That's why I'm rewatching Tiger King for the 8th time.
Oh, did those tigers test positive too?
Apparently, there were some tigers in the zoo. At least one testing positive, which is not there.
They said veterinary tests are very different from human tests, so don't be upset that the tiger got ahead of you in line.
Actually, my son, who, as you know, flew back from Bali, he'd been in Vietnam and Thailand and Bali, and finally I talked to him on the March 28th to fly back. He flew back via Tokyo, arrived in the States, was not tested or temperatured or anything. They said, yeah, come on in, kid, come on in. But we've been kind of sequestering him. We got him an Airbnb, and he's staying there, and he's been there now for 10 days, starting to come down with symptoms. So, I don't know. I don't know what it could be if it's not COVID. He hasn't seen or touched anything or anybody. He's not. So I'm a little nervous. He calls his doctor. The guy says, we don't test. We can't test. We don't have any tests. Well, we're going to tell you what I would tell anybody. Don't leave. Don't go out now. You can't go out at all. You can't go shopping. Can't do anything. So I'm going to be sending him food and stuff. And he said, if you have trouble breathing, call us back. That's it.
Chris Cuomo has been giving tips on how he's getting through it, like stay bundled up but walk around, make sure you take your meds but don't stop breathing. It's
nice to be a celebrity because you can get a test if you're famous.
Yeah.
But the rest of the world is just going. Yeah,
Boris Johnson's in ICU.
I know, terrible. I know.
Well, that's why it's so valuable. Part of my thinking kind of evolved a week and a half ago. The first time I read someone on Reddit, I think basically went day by day, step to step. I'm recovered now, but here's what I was feeling. Here's what I was going through every day, and that basically gave me a template for assume that I start to feel sick tomorrow, and I'm not a jerk, so I don't want to. So exactly, I don't want to leave the house. What will I need to have in the house to be able to take care of my not just I already had a couple of weeks of food, but now it's like, do you have ibuprofen? Do you have Gatorade or whatever for dehydration? Is the house and the bedroom clean, tidy enough that you can basically use it as a sick room? So again, not hope, not plan. I don't know what the right word is. Not expecting the worst, but at least being ready for it in case it happens.
I think that's sensible, and that's what we're all doing right now.
Yeah, because if I had the foresight, I would have planned for running out of toilet paper and not having any disinfectant wipes in the house. And
yeah, but you would have had to plan that long ago. That's the problem. And who knew? We'll know next time. We'll be ready next time. Of course, we'd have to put coronavirus right in there. I mean, it's a big part of the story. And the Apple stores, as we do this, are still closed in many areas. And I hope you're getting through the pandemic okay. There's nothing like a cozy fire to warm your hands by. And yeah, when you're at home, you can take off your mask. Apple did produce, as you saw, 1 million+ face shields. We need more. Make more, Apple. There was, though, a product we remember as the worst product Apple ever made. Now, if you asked me, could it be the iPod socks? Maybe. But they only cost a few bucks. This was pricey. Watch.
The single stupidest product Apple has ever made, or I hope ever will make. I would actually nominate it as the stupidest tech product ever made by a large manufacturer.
Wait a minute, let me think. What could this be? Don't say.
Oh,
Does my dog have 3 of them? Does my dog have 3 because 4 of them would be ungracious?
It's an exercise in a riddle for us all. All right, is everybody...
The $12,000 solid gold.
Oh,
there you go. There you go. Okay, I'll give that to you.
Again,
yeah.
Apple hasn't lost touch with the consumer with that product.
Was it 12? I think it was even more than that, wasn't it?
It was 12,
it was 18 karat gold, and it started at that. It went up.
Yep. That was the cheap one. That was the one with the factory radio and no air conditioning.
It was solid gold.
And remember that Apple created a whole new section of the store with security and a special concierge service for it. And the box was great. I'm not complaining about the box. If you offered me a box, I would probably pay okay money for it because it was a lovely box.
Oh, you want a band with that? That'll be $7,000 extra.
Yeah, it's
cow.
You know what though? Their today version of the luxury version of the Apple Watch, the ceramic, I'd buy that. It
titanium
is
too.
Really
I have the
good
titanium.
looking.
I bought the titanium.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know why, because honestly, I'm going to get another one the minute the new one comes out, so it's silly.
Every year I say I'm buying the Nike. The Nike is the absolute best value. And then they're like, oh, have you seen titanium? I know next year it'll be like tungsten. It weighs 13 pounds, but it's the same size. It's tungsten. And I'll be like, yes, arm curls. It'll be great.
The ceramic is beautiful, Lori. You're absolutely right. It's gorgeous.
It's so pretty.
And I think that the Apple Watch Edition as a concept was a good idea because it is a watch.
It was a $12,000 one.
Again, and especially that there's nothing about this design that demands it be made out of gold. There's nothing of it. It was just, hey, I know it's not as simple as, oh, well, we were pouring aluminum into this mold. We decided just for giggles, let's pour some gold. I know it's a lot more complicated than that. I think they actually made a big deal of it's not just gold. It's we sampled a million different versions of gold to choose this version of gold, and it's like, really, this is really what you're spending your time on.
Who here actually saw the gold one with their own eyes?
Not me.
Andy,
I saw Serenity Caldwell wearing 2 of them on her wrist at the same time, surrounded by Apple people.
No.
Yeah, she slapped both of them on at the table. That was our Serenity.
Do we know anybody who owns one? No.
I do.
You do?
You do?
I do.
Yeah. You seem embarrassed
that
you know someone.
No, you have to understand. So, at launch day, and I've told a story before, Jim Dalrymple and I went to the Palo Alto Apple store, and it was like a bonanza like you expect. But then afterwards, we went to the coffee shop, and we were sitting there, and there were these Silicon Valley nerds going, oh, which of the Apple Watch Gold watches are you going to get? Oh, I think I'm going to get this one. And it's that same conversation we had at the beginning of the show where certain people have enough zeros in their bank accounts that none of this, they buy $25,000 plane seats, they buy $17,000 dresses they wear once, they stay a minimum 6-star. It's a different world. And I'm sure they enjoyed them for the year that they had them. And I'm sure they're just as happy with their Nike version now.
I'm going to guess that 90% of the people who had them were given them by Apple, like Beyonce and others, to wear them.
I think they were Emirates sales. I heard that a large portion of them were in places like the Abu Dhabi and the Dubai Apple stores.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a multi-billionaire, an $18,000 watch, it's like a $5 watch for you and me. It's nothing.
Yeah, that's not a good look for Apple, is it?
Oh, it's terrible.
But also, you shouldn't overlook that at that media event, there were so many high-ranking people from the fashion world there. Yeah. And I'm not talking about Instagram influencers. I'm talking about I think Anna Wintour was there, leaders of so many different design brands.
Turlington.
It was on the cover of Vogue, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And when we were standing, the PR was so different too, because I've been to several Apple events now, but there was a bunch of people dressed like you would see dressed on reality shows, just completely things coming out of everywhere going, oh, this feels like a fashion event, doesn't it? It feels like a fashion event. Ooh.
Was that a bad idea? Was it really a bad idea? Or maybe it was a good idea. Maybe they really got a lot of attention because of it.
No, that was definitely a good idea, because their whole idea was they put so much into making this not look like a gadget watch. If there was one imperative of this launch, it was to not, hey, it's got Nixie tubes on it. It's the size of a can of tuna, but it's got Wi-Fi on it. I mean, they have to make the point that we know how to design something that people are going to want to put on their wrists, because this is not going to be just a gadget that they use for productivity. This is going to be part of the style statement that they make, just like I apparently made a style statement by putting on a sweater vest over a T-shirt today. But that's they really did have to make that statement, and they put this is why it was one of the worst launches from the point of view of, I think it was very clear that Apple didn't know who was going to buy this. They also didn't have a lot of it really working, I think, at that time, so it really put them on their back foot there. But they knew that if we get the hardware right, you can always put new electrons in there. We can't just push out an update to the style of this thing. And they got the style so right that no one is complaining that, oh gosh, it's so boring. It's 5 years and we haven't seen a new case design. It's like, no, you let us have really cool different straps. You let us upgrade let me upgrade from the aluminum one that I could afford 5 years ago to the stainless steel one I can afford now. We're good. Just give me custom watch faces, and then we'll be perfect.
First of all, let's get this out of the way. You already know it probably. It was funny, the day before the keynote, Sunday, John Prosser, Mark Gurman, another Apple rumor guy, all said no new hardware. It was clear somebody from Apple called them one by one and said,
no, but nobody from Apple called them.
There was planning.
If it was a Wall Street, if it had run in Bloomberg, if it had run in Wall Street, if it had been like BuzzFeed News, like if Walt Mossberg had tweeted it, but let's just say it got out. Like it got out early.
I think it was in Apple's interest, though, to say ahead of time, look, this is not going to be about new hardware. Not even Apple tags. Although there was some Apple tag news, so we'll get to that.
There was a new Mac Mini, kinda, Leo. I mean,
that was new hardware. Yeah, that was. Yeah, you're right.
We have a new computer, but you can't buy it.
I went over my developer account to see if I could get one because it'd be fun to have. But you have to tell them what app you're going to write with it and all that stuff. And I didn't want to lie. That would just be...
Do you remember Steve when he introduced that cheese grater with the Pentium chip in it? And he's like, and we're going to want them back. We don't want them floating around out there. So we're going to get them back.
And that's the same thing with this. You don't own it. You rent it. $500, though, which is not bad. It's part of the Universal App Quick Start program and the Developer Transition Kit. What's interesting is it's an iPad Pro with a little more RAM.
Yeah,
and some different ports.
You noticed that too.
Yeah,
that's. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but that started me thinking that. So, what's stopping me from being able to install macOS on a brand new iPad? You're Apple. You're essentially telling me that most of what I need is already available in a MacBook.
It's a jailbreak in a dream, Andy. A jailbreak in a dream.
I do think it's a RAM issue, but we'll get to that. So, the key here, though, is. That they did, and they revealed this later, the whole keynote, all of the Big Sur demos, all of the Mac demos on this. And it looked perfectly normal.
Shades of Intel again, right?
Yeah, nobody said, oh boy, that looks sluggish, none of that. They then later ran Maya and Final, because they said Final Cut's ready. They said Logic is ready. They showed off Lightroom. Adobe's been working on it.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider, kinda.
Yeah, I have to say some of that stuff didn't look great, but I mean, this isn't even.
It was emulated 1080p on an iPad chip.
Yeah.
I mean,
this isn't even close to what they're going to release. So, and as we suspected, not one word about. They didn't mention the ARM word at all. It's Apple Silicon. They're moving from Intel to Apple Silicon.
I went back and looked, and Steve Jobs never said x86 or mentioned any instruction sets. He's like, it's Intel, because he knew that was a name everyone would recognize from Wintel's monopoly or duopoly or whatever it was at the time. And it's just, that's the marketing term. And I think for Apple, it's a ARM, and 90% of the casual viewers would say, what? Like an ARM?
Yeah.
And this is just like, oh, my iPhone and iPad chip. That's great. I love those.
I think there's also a reason not to say ARM, because ARM has maybe a bad reputation among people who've tried, for instance, Windows on ARM. It's felt sluggish, and so I think they just don't. It's not ARM. It's their stuff.
Not just that.
Make their own chips. Yeah.
Yeah, not just that, but it also underscores that this is our own technology. We're not just jumping on this ARM bandwagon.
Right.
We are, and no one cares what the letters on the chip are. They just care about what do I get from this, and why should I not be scared. I think that Apple really did address both of those during the keynote yesterday.
Lori,
not as elegant.
Are you excited? Are you going to get a DTK, man?
No, for similar reasons to you, I don't have an app to develop on it. So I would just want it just to, to run it and see how it works. But I have been running Mac OS, and it does give you a hint at the future of an Apple Silicon Mac for sure, just visually. So
I should point that out, and I don't. We should see a show of hands. Developer versions of the new iOS, iPad OS, TV OS, Watch OS, and OS 11 were all available day of. You installed it, Lori? All of them?
Yeah.
What did you install?
I haven't gotten to Apple Watch yet, but that's just because my spare Apple Watch wasn't charged yet, so I'm getting there. But everything. Oh, and I haven't gotten to Apple TV yet. It's just a matter of the time that it takes, especially the. I always have trouble with Mac OS installing it because I partition my hard drive. This time I made a volume on my MacBook Pro, so it always takes a while. You have to delete things and redo them. So right now I've got them on 3 things: iPad, iPhone, and Mac.
Oh, that's interesting. So you could use Disk Utility, create an APFS volume, not touch your existing Catalina, right, and install it into that volume. And now, if you wanted to, it's a dual boot, right? You could boot into Big Sur.
Yeah.
Oh, I might try that because I have to. Renee, what did you install? Did you install them all?
I installed I installed it all, and I installed them on my daily drivers because no matter what the pain, I feel like I'm just not going to use them enough, like to be honest about them if I don't put them where I'm always using them. Fair. Except I didn't put it on my Final Cut editing machine because I know the people who do that, like people like Martin, like SafeSolve, they do that. And they're like, it's fine, but then maybe beta 2 happens or beta 4 happens.
Right.
And like last year, you just couldn't launch it under beta 4, so it's like it wouldn't run. So I put that on I was lucky enough I had a second computer here. I put it on that just so I could play with it. But otherwise, I vastly prefer putting them on my daily drivers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Andy, did you install, you don't have well, maybe you do have an iPhone. I don't know.
No, I do. I installed it on one of my older iPhones. I have not installed it on my iPad Pro yet. I have not installed it on one of my old Macs yet. That's coming later this week. A lot of last night was I will admit something. I did decide to social distance. And so while the keynote was streaming, I was actually at the town beach. However, so I saw you on Twitter. You outed yourself,
because
sir.
As you well know, when Apple's got an event, they vacate the beaches. There's no one there. It's great.
Exactly.
You can have the beach to yourself. Yeah.
It's just the Microsoft people and Andy.
Yeah. So I decided what was the easiest to install, what had some of the most interesting things, and unfortunately I didn't have the wherewithal at the moment to suddenly sacrifice one of my Macs to the beta gods or the dev gods. But I have to say that it really is a tie for first place between things I'm excited to try on the iPhone and things I'm really excited to see live click and drag on the Mac, because that was, again, we'll talk about all this stuff in depth, but that was a huge leap forward for the Mac yesterday.
Here's Jonathan Mann. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. How you doing?
We're thrilled that you could come on. We all wanted to wish Woz a happy birthday, and I thought maybe Jonathan would have a good way to do that.
I do have a good way to do that. 10 years ago, after Steve Jobs used my song in the Antennagate thing, Steve Wozniak's wife commissioned me to make him a birthday song. And then out of the blue, a couple months ago, here we are 10 years later for his, that was his 60th. This is his 70th. She asked me to do it again. So I 10 years, all of us are 10 years older. And so I wrote him another song.
And we'll be hearing it, I'm sure, tonight, but let's get a preview.
Yes. I think they're going to be playing the video there that I made for him, but I will do you a acoustic version. So here we go. Well, happiness equals smiles minus frowns, and laughter is the most beautiful sound. What's the point if it isn't fun? You get nothing done without passion. Oh, 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 that's the Woz. Oh, 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 that's the Woz. He likes wife's math tricks and gadgets and Raspberry Pi projects. He made a camera that detects hummingbirds. 3 kids and 7 grandkids. Oh, he loves taking road trips. He'd give you the shirt off his back. You just say the word. Ooh, Woz has got everything you could ever want, including honorary doctoral degrees. So on his birthday, don't email. No gifts, please, as well. Please donate to his favorite charity, inspiringchildren.net. Oh, happiness equals smiles minus frowns. And laughter is the most beautiful sound. What's the point if it isn't fun? You get nothing done without passion. Oh, 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 that's the Woz. Yeah, oh, oh, that's the Woz. He invented the personal computer, pouring his heart into subroutine. Remember when he was on Dancing with the Stars and Big Bang Theory and on Celebrity Watch Party? Oh, you can clearly see Woz's tender heart is on display. And he's proud of being a geek and feels so lucky, 'cause Janet loves him every minute of every day. Ooh, bent but never broken. He loves inspiring children to be the kindest, most passionate they can be. He's always got time for fans, so if you can lend a hand, please donate to his favorite charity, inspiringchildren.net. Oh, because happiness equals smiles minus frowns. And laughter is the most beautiful sound. Ooh, what's the point if it isn't fun? You get nothing done without passion. Oh, 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 that's the Woz. Oh, 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 that's the Woz. Oh, 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 that's the Woz.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Jonathan Mann. The Song a Day Man. You can follow him on YouTube. Unaccountably, his YouTube channel is The Rock Cookie Bottom. But I think if you just search for Jonathan Mann, I'm sure there's a story there.
There is, yeah.
And, of course, he's got a podcast at podcast.jonathanmann.net. Jonathan, thank you so much for performing for that for us. I can't wait till tonight. We got the unplugged version. We'll see the full mix tonight at wozbday.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Have a great day. Yay.
You too. Have a good one.
Applause from the chat room. They're silent, but they're applauding. Trust me.
Well, if someone who's written a song a day for thousands of days can't find a rhyme for inspiringchildren.net, it's not possible.
2020 was a year that kept on giving, both good and bad. And there's one story that broke in 2020 that will probably still be around in our best ofs in 2020. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, even probably all the way up to 2030. And that's the epic battle between Epic Games and Apple. I'm going to stay above the fray for a moment because I'm a little heated about all of this.
And Google, let's not forget, it's a three-way fight.
Yeah, Google, I'm not, Okay, so here's the deal. You all know, but I'm just going to give you a quick recapitulation. So for those who don't, on Thursday, Epic launched a missile. I mean, it really had clearly planned to begin this war. It knew it had a 30-page court pleading prepared. It had a 1984-style movie made. They replaced the in-app purchases at first on iOS and then on the Google Play Store with a mechanism that would get around it so that you could buy credits from Epic directly and not pay the 30% to Apple or Google. Both Apple and Google immediately responded by pulling Fortnite from the Play Store. Now, Fortnite is a free game, but the in-app purchases have been very successful. They've made Tim Sweeney and Epic billions and billions of dollars. I think Sweeney made $7 billion last year in the Fortnite DLC stuff. You know, dance moves, outfits, all of that stuff. It's very successful. People love it. It's a great game. And by the way, it's not exclusive to iOS or Android. It's probably much more played on PC or consoles. In fact, they even pay the 30% to both Sony and Microsoft for in-game app purchases in their stores. So, and they didn't pull it there. But remember that Tim Sweeney had started this fight when they first put Epic Fortnite on Google Play or on Android. They decided not to go through the Google Play Store. They said, well, you can sideload it because we don't want to give them 30%. But it turned out to be a little more complicated and B, a little more risky to do the side loading. In fact, it didn't launch well. Some hacker was able to insert malware into the downloads initially. So eventually they joined the Google Play Store. Apple's response and Google's response, as I said, to pull the game down. But then Apple this week went one step further and perhaps a step too far. Epic sued immediately. And what Apple's response to that was, they sued Apple and Google, was to yank or threaten to yank, it'll be in effect August 28th, Epic's developer credentials, which means no Epic properties could be updated in the App Store, including apparently, according to Epic, the Unreal Engine. The Unreal Engine is not only used for Fortnite, it's used for many, many iOS games. And those game developers would be put on the spot. They would either have to replace the Unreal Engine, which is not really doable, or not be able to update their apps ever again. And
Epic could release it unsigned, but they'd have to give up their own signing privileges to do that.
So
that's it a worse experience.
That's where I want to begin, because I know that both you and Lori have dug deep into this, and Andy have dug deep into this. Epic says that by doing that, this retaliatory move, they have jeopardized Unreal Engine. And in the legal document, they immediately filed for injunctive relief from the courts. In the document, they said, if the Unreal Engine can no longer support Apple platforms, the software developers that use it will be forced to use alternatives. The damage to Epic's ongoing business and to its reputation and trust with its customers will be unquantifiable and irreparable. Preliminary injunctive relief is necessary to prevent Apple from crushing Epic before this case could ever get to judgment. Is it the case that yanking the developer credentials, is that the effect it would have, Renee?
So can I just preface this quickly by saying that all the legal stuff is posturing. Like everyone is taking the most extreme position possible to sort of make the most extreme case possible. And I truly do believe that all of them sincerely think that they are in the right and are rationalizing their behavior by telling us that they're doing it all for us. And there is a lot of, like, just so much, all the money at stake. So technically, they are both Apple and Epic are using like the Obi-Wan Kenobi version of the truth, where it's from a certain point of view. Like Apple is saying it's a level playing field for all the apps, and this is in Apple's agreement. It says that if you violate this.
Let me give you Apple's response from last night. The App Store is designed to be as safe and just so that everybody gets their pleadings out. The Apple Store is designed to be a safe and trusted place for users and a great business opportunity for all developers. Epic has been one of the most successful developers on the App Store. Undeniably true, growing into a multi-billion-dollar business that reaches millions of iOS customers around the world. We very much want to keep the company as part of the Apple Developer Program and their apps on the store. The problem Epic has created for itself is one that can be easily remedied if they submit an update of their app that reverts it to comply with the guidelines they agreed to and which apply to all developers. We won't make an exception for Epic because we don't think it's right to put their business interests ahead of the guidelines that protect our customers. But it seems to me that still would be true, but the minute they yank developer Is that part of the agreement?
That's in the agreement. It says that you at first they give you a time period to fix it, and then you lose your.
Okay.
But most developers, that's fine because they just can't put their app up. But Epic, I think both Apple and Epic forget in this that they are responsible for a huge dependency for many other developer. Yeah, and if either Apple or Epic does anything to jeopardize the Unreal Engine, it's not just them who suffer. Epic could release it as unsigned. You can still, we talked about this before, you can go in, do a terminal command. It reveals a little button that says turn off Gatekeeper, and you can still install Unreal. But I believe Unreal lets you sign applications with your certificate inside their app, and they require certification to be able to do that part of it. So it would just make it. It's already a really tough. Brianna Rue was tweeting about how tough the procedure is. It's already really tough to spit out a finalized app, and it would just make it that much tougher. And Epic, as we see from their pleading against Google, they hate the idea of sideloading. It's just not. They don't think normal people do it.
So, and you can't sideload on iOS. So
no, you can on Mac though. So that's the developer part that people were concerned about.
You if they lose the development credentials, it affects the game developers downloading and installing Unreal Engine on their Mac in order to make an iOS app. It doesn't impinge on the iOS app itself. It's merely they can't get updates on
updating it. Yeah. Well, they can, but they'd have to go through the same sideloading process that Epic says is so egregious on Android. So basically, they contend that, like, again, normal people don't sideload. Apple and Google make it seem so scary when you do it, and they effectively block you by not making it the default status and use things like Google Protect and Gatekeeper to make it almost effectively impossible in their wording to do it. So they want full access without having to go through that procedure.
So it struck me, at least the optics of it. This second blow,
it's all bad.
Really looked like for Apple, I think. Well, maybe that's just my point of view, but for Apple, the optics of saying, "Hey, you got a nice ecosystem you got here. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it." Lori, is this what? I mean, how are regular people going to react to this? I think they're going to react like I did. They don't know what the agreement is. They're going to say, "Apple, you are being dicks," or is it Epic?
Well, no, they're going to say Epic Games has really done a good job of marketing this as the tyrannical overlord that is Apple, and to a lesser degree Google, are the ones who are doing everything wrong here. The average person is not going to see this as Apple, trying to adhere to its guidelines. They're not going to see Epic as having done something wrong. It's definitely, and unfortunately, Apple is the one who's looking the worst in this case, even though Google is doing the exact same thing too.
See, Google
Apple is the one getting the bigger headline.
Google's less of a monopoly because you can sideload. Apple prohibits that, says you cannot.
And they're not a development platform. Nobody's writing Unreal apps using their Android phone. They're doing it on Windows or they're doing it on Mac.
Yeah. Also, they're a lot less stringent about collecting 30% on every transaction that happens within the ecosystem. So
not on games though. In games, they're identical to Apple.
Right. Right. But their argument at Epic is that this is a universal thing that is just no good and shouldn't be allowed. Although let's also admit that what part of the fun is that Epic didn't just do like a search and replace Google and Apple when they filed the lawsuit against Google. Google's lawsuit specifically calls out but didn't, and every time I want to say this, I want to use like the southern sweaty country lawyer like voice. And you are founded upon the principle that we don't do evil. Well, what have you to say about this now, sir? But part of the lawsuit against Google mentions that, for instance, Epic tried to get a deal with OnePlus, for instance, to put the Epic Game Store preloaded on all of their phones. But was they had a deal in place, but Google stepped in and said to OnePlus, "We would very much like for you not to do this deal," and the deal was kibosh. So this underscores the fact that this was not for people on Twitter and other social media that are saying, "Oh, well, this is a stupid lawsuit; it can't possibly proceed." That has the idea that that this was something that they did impulsively, as opposed to something they built month by month over a period of a year to make sure that whatever arguments they make. I mean, they have Christine Varney as part of their co-counsel to front this.
Explain to me how this makes customers safer.
What makes customers safer?
This is Apple's response. We're trying to make Apple customers safer.
We've proven that it's not like they've handled transactions, and this is part of Epic's complaint. They've handled transactions for Amazon. When you buy non-digital goods, transactions are handled through the vendor, not through Apple, and those are secure. And when you install apps using Gatekeeper, and when you install apps using sideloading on Android,
Apple says we won't make an exception for Epic because we don't think it's right to put their business interests ahead of the guidelines that protect our customers. And in fact, they should say we don't think it's right for them to put their business interests ahead of our business interests. That's the truth.
Well, no,
and this is why it hurts Apple. This is why it hurts Apple because, they have the right to do this. It's in the agreement. It looks terrible. It looks, because it followed on after the lawsuit. They said, well, in that case, no developer license for you, and we're going to hurt an entire ecosystem of people. And you can't make the argument, despite Apple's statement, that it's protecting customers. It's protecting our bottom line. And I think the optics on this could not be worse. Whether Apple has merit, whether it's doing the right thing, whether you can argue that they've added so much value that it's, and 30% is the norm and all that stuff, doesn't matter. Because the normal person is going to look at this and say, what dicks? All right, we all watched the event, right? Obviously. I'll tell you the one thing that really stood out for me, and it's going to be an issue for Apple, is we knew, we knew they were going to announce a new watch. We knew they were going to announce a new iPad Air. They added some things in there. They did not mention tags. They did not mention speakers. They did not mention iPhone. So we know there's more to come, obviously. There's more than one more thing. But they did surprise me still when they talked about the new iPad Air because it has a new Apple Silicon A14 chip in it. So it is now faster than the high-priced iPad Pro.
So
does this mean everybody was saying on Twitter, well, I guess nobody's going to buy an 11-inch iPad Pro anymore. There are very few differences. You still get the 120 hertz on the iPad Pro. They didn't mention that, at least for the iPad Air. You get Face ID. I'm glad to see Face ID go. I think the on-off button fingerprint reader sounds like a much improved solution.
Yeah, it remains to be seen how well it's going to work. But I think that Face ID was less essential on a big screen device than it is on a handheld device. I would like to think that this means that gives us reason to wonder exactly how far ahead the new iPad Pro is going to come as soon as it's released.
I thought maybe they'd announce it today, but they did not. They had just updated the iPad Pros with the new cameras, the LiDAR.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's going to happen, and this might be crazy, but this is a good beta test for Touch ID on a button because then the iPhone will get 2 biometric factor identification for so you can do if you want to buy an app, you can use either finger or face, right? But if you want to make a transaction, like a money purchase, you're going to have to put finger
both
and face. And then there's almost no way to beat that.
I never thought of that, but you're right. That's brilliant.
2-factor biometrics.
2-factor biometrics.
Oh. Well, is Apple willing to make the statement that actually when we said that there's no more secure way to authenticate on this device than Face ID, actually maybe you do want to do both of these at the same. I could really see it. I could really see them doing it as a belt and suspenders sort of situation because as we have seen, there are times when maybe Face ID is not very, very convenient, and there are times when taking a glove off a hand is not very, very convenient.
But that's for the normal course of events. I think what Doc Rock's saying is normal course of events, one or the other. But in those special times, like you're buying something where you really want it to be secure, you might say, I want both. Or like you're logging into your bank. I don't know.
Even like now with wearing masks and stuff, like the ability
that's why
to
I want
Face
fingerprint
ID back right now.
Yes.
Yeah. I've always loved Face ID until I had to rock the mask 24/7. I went to school in Japan, so I wore a mask all the time. Like I was used to that.
Oh, that's interesting.
But having to unlock my phone when I want to use Apple Pay because I don't want to touch the punchy thing, the what do you call it, the little display. So I like to tap with my phone. And so, yeah, it's great to not to be able to have to take that off there.
Yeah, I don't mind losing Face ID, to be honest with you. And I should mention that on-off switch fingerprint is used by a lot of companies. It's used on PCs. It's used, I think Google uses it on some of their devices. Samsung uses it. It's on a lot of phones. Every time I've used it, it's very reliable. It's actually on this the Surface Duo, the Microsoft thing. It's fast, it's accurate, it's very easy to use. And you see, it's just what it really is a little, and Apple showed this in the event, it's a little scanner. And you could put that on the on-off switch, and it works very quickly and well. I think it's just a logical place to put it. What was it, a OnePlus? Something I had that, and I liked it a lot. And the whole thing about the fingerprint through the screen, I know it does, doesn't it? But I think it's still good.
But if it works, it works.
Yeah,
like, that's great. I like to hear that there's already products that have success with using it, so that we know, like, it's an existing technology. It's not going to fail every third time necessarily. You know, it's good.
I'm thrilled. I am thrilled. But I am worried about the 11-inch iPad Pro. I mean, I guess it's 150. Somebody in the chat room did the numbers. $150 more for the 11-inch iPad Pro versus the Air. You get additional camera lenses. You get LiDAR, and you get 120 hertz. So there's some benefits, but not many.
They could make sure that the screen size is always going to be an advantage. They could make sure that the top storage is always going to be an advantage. There are ways to differentiate.
Well, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro I could see, right? By the way, this is the iPad Air. That is a lie. You can even see it is not an all-screen design. There's bezels. I definitely see bezels. Am I wrong?
Let's have a place to actually hold it without buying something accidentally. Can we please?
Okay, you're right. You do need a bezel on a tablet. I agree. But let's not call it an all-screen design.
But bezels are like the smash mouth of industrial design. It's like, what did they ever do to get everybody so mad at it and telling everybody that, oh, this has bezels, it must be a piece of crap? Bezels are fine, they're wonderful.
I know, but when you see them, and you've been using, it's mostly on phones, Andy. But when you see a big bezel, and you've been using bezel-less, you suddenly go, oh, that's disappointing.
I'll give you that on the Duo. I'll also give you that on the 8th generation iPad, which we'll be talking about later, I'm sure. Because now that does seem a little bit weird to have all that headroom and footroom. But I really do think that having some air, so to speak, between the live screen and the actual edge of the display is a good thing.
You need to be able to hold it. With a phone, you can hold. It's okay. You can hold it by the edges. But a tablet, you need to hold like you're holding a steering wheel. And I think you're exactly right on that.
Yeah. So, Leo, it's an iPad, and the bezels are okay.
Thank you, Smash Mouth Doc Rock. Now I know why you got that name. Doc Rock, you're throwing out your GoPros, you're throwing out all your DSLRs, you're getting rid of the Canon, the Nikon, the Sony. It's all Apple iPhone all the time, right?
You first
dumpster dive party at Doc Rock's house.
You're swearing at me with all those words except Sony.
I'm a Sony guy too. I know what you mean.
So here's why this is a big deal. I'm an Ecamm guy, right? I teach Ecamm on my stream. I tell everybody, if you just want to start, it's the easiest way to do it. One of the coolest features of Ecamm is you can just plug in an iPhone and it immediately works. So if you want to start and you have no other cameras but your iPhone, the fact that you can just cable it up right away with the standard lightning cable and you're good to go is amazing. Now you take that and you add in this new camera, you add in this HDR 10-bit on the fly shooting. Oh my goodness.
Now tell me what that means as
incredible stuff.
As a videographer. They said, and to me, this sounded amazing, 60 frame per second, 4K, HDR, 10-bit with Dolby Vision. Now, that's 5 buzzwords in there, but all at the same time. Is that good?
Yes. So your bit definition covers a bunch of different things. Primarily, we're looking at dynamic range, And we're talking about dynamic range on all the levels of the bits, right? So one of your fours is your RGBs. One of your fours is the hues, saturation, and luminance, right? One of your fours is based off of depth, color, basically, it's your dynamic range, right? Your shadows and your highlights and things like that.
So
right?
the more bits you store, the more information about the scene you're storing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so therefore you have more ability to, when you go to edit said photo or edit said video, you have more that you're working with. This is why we all love RAW. So when you're shooting in, say, video RAW on any camera or things like the Blackmagic camera and stuff like that.
Wait a minute. It's still compressed, right? You can't shoot RAW video.
For the iPhone, it will be compressed. If it was straight RAW video.
Is it 444? Yeah, no. You wouldn't have the room for it.
Yeah, that itself, it will burn out. So it is going to probably be in the HEIC codec or the XAVC codec, which is still somewhat compressed.
But these are very good, though. These are good codecs now. Yeah.
You watch it all day, every day.
MP5,
You don't even think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we're beyond the days of squishing something down or squiz, as my friend Dinah would say, squizzing things down to, like the original MP3 format, and it just sounds like rubbish. I mean, we're at a whole different game and space with compression and things like that now. And the fact that for the most part, you could take what is the proxy footage out of, a Sony camera, how you can shoot dual mode. You could take the proxy footage, edit it, and throw it up online, and nobody would even notice. Nobody would care. Yes. They'd be like, oh, this is great. So, like, to be able to do this with an iPhone, though, I mean, bro.
I wish I could return my GoPro I just got. the Hero, whatever, 8 Black.
You can't. You didn't get it from Costco?
Because honestly, I don't know if I need it anymore. This iPhone, it sounds like, you know what I was waiting for at the end? They didn't do it, but I was waiting for Apple to say, and by the way, this entire presentation was shot on iPhone. But they didn't do that. No.
That video, and okay, let's get this straight, people. Do not get it twisted. You're not going to get your iPhone home and shoot what they shot there.
Okay.
The number one thing that they have that you do not have, okay, you can buy an OM 4 or as an Osmo Mobile 4. You can buy a movie, Cinema Robot. You can get that balance. You can get all of that covered. But they're bringing 10K light, They're bringing big HDMI light, right? So even the stuff that they shot at night, there's probably some practical light somewhere to give it that extra boost.
Yeah.
But you can do that. Right now, Prime Day, if you don't buy anything and you're into video creation, buy lights. Don't buy anything else. Everything else is not going to help you. Light is boom. Like this light right here that gives me all of this, je ne sais quoi, that's like a $1,500 light. But it's because when you go to stream, it looks good, right?
Yeah.
You can make this old ugly dude look good.
Yeah.
So that and that Boston hat, come on.
I'm really excited. I mean, that's one thing. And I have to say at this point with Google kind of, they left the image processing hardware out of the Pixel 5. I feel like they're in effect kind of saying, yeah, go ahead, Apple. And you could say, well, what about Samsung? Samsung has a lot of capability, but they are very opinionated about what they do to your photography. And I think unless you like that Samsung look, it is not a natural look. What the iPhone's going to give you is the best, most realistic photos. They're supporting some, by the way, this is some video on the website. There's no point in me streaming it at 720p, highly compressed. Go look at it at the website. If you were able to, if you have an Apple TV 4K and you have a 4K TV, I'm going to go home and watch the event on 4K because I think you'll see a lot better.
That's how I watched it.
Yeah,
because I was working in the living room. I did not anticipate it being as cinematic as it was. And boy, did the photo and video demos really hit home on a 4K 60-inch HDR TV.
It's the first camera ever to record in Dolby Vision. That's an HDR format, but playback, it supports all 3 HDR formats. I don't think any other phone does that. The iPhone 11 was 8-bit HDR. This is 10-bit HDR. Dolby Vision is, stunning. The screen now, they're even calling it an XDR screen to kind of emphasize that you're going to get the brightness. The nits were super high. The resolution, almost 500 pixels per inch. And you're going to get the HDR. So you're going to look at that screen and you're going to see what you shot. And it's going to look fantastic. I think this is an amazing camera. I think Apple is now making perhaps certainly the best phone camera out there, and I suspect that it's a camera that's going to compete even with DSLRs. They're offering something now called Pro RAW, or will be, which gives you all of the bits off the sensor. That's the raw part, but also saves the computational data, the Fusion engine, all the Apple image
data,
from the
LiDAR,
pipeline data, which means, and it with obviously you're going to have to get an app that'll support this. I'm sure Apple's will. Makes you wonder if they should have kept Aperture around. Although they did point out that Adobe Photoshop will support it. I imagine Lightroom will support it. That's
Luminar.
You think Luminar will do it? I hope so. Skylum will do it.
Those boys are super, super quick. And then on the iPhone, you can know right away that Pro camera. And I have to give a shout out to Umi Workshop, who's in the chat. He's their designer for that. Makes all the buttons look cute. That Pro camera app is already one of the dopest apps for the iPhone. So be able to do photo raw with that app, you're going to be basically like having a mirrorless camera.
And Apple did say there is a kit. We will expose all of the features of this camera so third-party camera apps can use it. Boy, I tell you, this is going to be. They've pinpointed that they didn't even mention that you can make phone calls with this, by the way. they didn't show messages. They didn't show anything else. They didn't run apps. They spent a little time with gaming. I think this was kind of their response to losing Fortnite. They said, and now you can play League of Legends. It's like you can play last year's game if you want. And that was
nitpicky.
Yeah, I don't know. I do have to say though, that demonstration and all of this camera stuff is really flexing the Apple silicon. What they are really saying is, you have a 6-core, 4 GPU phone in your pocket. We can put in that chip 11.8 billion transistors. Hey, Richie is here. He was on Twit on Sunday, but I think there's a little more you could talk about today from youtube.com/RR. Look at that Mac Mini in his hot little hands. Oh,
I wanted so badly to tell you that we could talk about it on Tuesday, Leo, but I take this thing very seriously.
No, and you were good, and Apple should know you honored your embargo with verve, gusto, and integrity. So.
But we can unleash the hounds now.
So, I noticed when I got up this morning, quite a few reviews of Apple Silicon Macs, both the MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, and the MacBook Pro 13. Andy Ihnatko is also here from WGBH Boston. Good to see you, Andrew.
Good to see all of you again. Good to have the whole team back.
Yep. And, of course, Lori Gill, who I think also might have a little something.
Not yet.
No! Mine comes Friday. I've got a little. I checked because you said right. Check. They were saying it will come on Tuesday, a week from today, on the 24th, and I just checked, and UPS tells me it will be coming this Friday. So I'm very excited.
Some people got them today. Some people got them really early.
I know. I saw that on Reddit. A number of people, and of course, the review units. How long did you get it the day of, Renee?
I forget because FedEx was delayed for me. They had it's like on Twitter where you see all the reviewers just complaining about FedEx, and you're pretty certain something's arriving that day.
Yeah. So you got it, but you've had it for almost a week then.
Yeah, I've had it since I think Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. Plenty of time to, say, benchmark it.
Oh, I benchmarked this. I did the stonks version of benchmarking, Leo, because I knew that's the only thing anyone would be asking. So I did the Geek benches, the Cinebenches, the GFX bench, anything that with the word bench in it. I think I did a Park bench by accident.
Of course, a lot of these benchmarks, there is a Geek bench native M1 benchmark, but a lot of these benchmarks are not. They're Intel benchmarks, so you'd be really benchmarking Rosetta 2 as much as anything else. I will hold off. Let me hold off on your thoughts while we just summarize what we're seeing from Matthew Panzarino on TechCrunch, from Ars Technica, from Nilay Patel at The Verge. Actually, The Verge had all three and had 3 different reviewers test all of them. consensus from everybody is, whoa, these things are fast. And of course, Matthew, who did a lot of battery testing, amazing battery. Whoops, I pushed the wrong button there. Amazing battery life as well. Apple's new, this is Matthew Panzarino, Apple's new M1 powered MacBook shows impressive performance gains that make Intel's chips obsolete overnight. Is that hyperbole in your opinion, Renee?
So I managed to get all three of them as well, and I've been testing them all weekend. And there is one area that Intel still dominates. And I said this in my video. If you need your coffee cup kept warm by your Mac Mini, if you need to use your MacBook Pro as a heat blanket in the winter, then you are still going to have to go with Intel, because I pushed these things like 30-minute loops, everything I could do, and they barely get hot. Like, it took me 10 minutes to get the MacBook Air's fan to come on. To get the MacBook Air to down ramp and to get the MacBook Pro's fan to even come on. And even then it was whisper quiet, while the Intel Air and the Intel MacBook Pro were gasping for air like they'd been sucked out into space. This
animated GIF from Matthew Panzarino kind of tells the story. He is launching in succession each application in his dock. There is zero bouncing. They all launched.
It's responsive as an iPad. It's like it feels like having an iPad.
Are these real launches, though? I mean, are they ready to run, or is this one of those tricks where they stop bouncing and they render a screen, but it's not really usable yet?
No, it depends on the app. Like Photoshop and Final Cut Pro will still take a few bounces, but it's not like 8 bounces. Like I made this joke, and I thought it was a joke at first. I said like a movie trailer, like imagine a world with no more bouncing. Imagine a world where you're not waiting. Imagine a world without beach balls. It would be beautiful.
Yeah.
But that's really close to what I did not get a single beach ball. I did not get a stutter in Final Cut Pro, did not drop a frame. And these are the low power, low end worst of any M machine that's ever going to come out.
Well, and we should say this because on Sunday, now you had this on Sunday, but you couldn't tell anybody. So yes, you were talking with some knowledge of forethought, but the rest of us, including Alex Lindsay, were not. And you and Alex kind of agreed that these are not really pro. Even the MacBook Pro is not pro. I mean, I think nobody would deny that there will be the next generation and the generation after that, and they will get faster and faster and faster. But
yes,
I would have to say, given what I've seen in the benchmarks, even given the performance with admittedly only 16 gigs of RAM, that this MacBook Pro, for instance, outperformed the Mac Pro in some cases.
Almost, yeah. So the big constraint is going to be ports, I think, for people who are legitimate pro users, because you just can't, without a hub.
Get a freaking dock then.
Yeah, no, that's totally. But the thing with the RAM is, like, the machines these replaced only had 16 gigabytes. And Apple was really good. They did memory compression, they did ultra fast swap. But now you have a unified memory pool, which operates completely differently than a traditional VRAM and DRAM system. You're not copying things back and forth. Everything is instantly available. It's a pool, and we're going to have to reconceptualize how we talk about RAM on like, it's like talking about it on an iPad now. It's not like talking about it on a traditional PC.
That was my bet, and I still haven't used it. My MacBook Pro 13 comes on Friday, but that was my bet, was that you shouldn't compare 16 gigs of RAM on this device to an Intel device, especially because of the unified memory architecture. Panzarino even goes so far as to say, I think Apple might phase out the notion of RAM entirely, and you might have some sort of shared storage / RAM, some sort of Optane. Wouldn't be Optane.
It's like an IBM dream for years, right? Like they've been trying to patent and sell that for years, but it could be possible.
So you might have, up to 2 terabytes of RAM, let's say, except that it's RAM plus storage, and because it's on chip, it's all equally fast. I mean, I just want to say, my guess was at this, even before the announcement last week, but at the announcement for sure, that this was an inflection point in desktop computing. That everything was going to be kind of before Apple Silicon and after Apple Silicon, and I don't see anything at all to doubt that assessment. This is. Now, Andy, you pointed out that a number of the Intel fanboys on YouTube and elsewhere, Louis Rossman and people like that, are saying, what is their complaint?
A lot of their complaint is that I think they took umbrage at the, hey, this is faster than 98% of all Windows laptops released in the past year. And yeah, that's marketing lingo, but they didn't really focus on the actual performance of this actual thing. They're also complaining about RAM expandability, but they're also complaining about the GPU performance is not going to be as good as a dedicated GPU.
Well, wait a minute, because they obviously hadn't benchmarked it yet.
Yeah, I mean, a lot, but really, to sum up, a lot of this really sounds familiar to the first Mac that was released and the first iPad that was released, where they're trying to compare it to they're trying to compare it to the architecture and the sort of devices that they're used to, when it's really, really becoming clear that Apple didn't just swap from one processor to another. They reinvented the Mac from the ground up. And so there is going to be, as people continue to use these things, they're certainly going to be able to find, I'm sure, or rather, I have to believe, despite all immediate evidence, that they're going to find areas in which this new M1 CPU is not the one ring to rule them all. But the thing is, as you say, it feels more like an iPad because it was designed more like an iPad, not just a CPU swap.
I don't like the feels more like an iPad because that implies that somehow it's less than desktop computing. This is desktop
instantaneous though. Like the iPad is so responsive. Like to me, that's the thing. Whenever somebody says, "I wish I had like Final Cut Pro on the iPad," I try to figure out what do they actually mean. And there's a responsiveness and immediacy and instantaneousness to the iPad. Like you press something, it happens. You're never waiting. It never feels like it's beach balling. It feels like it's doing exactly what you want the second your fingers touch it. And for the first time, that's what these Macs feel like. And it's not just that, like, yes, the performance is outlandish. The battery life, I ran all my benchmarks on battery, and the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro were down to like 68 and 70%, and the Intel ones were like 27% and 40%. But beyond even that, it just felt like I was getting slices of my life back. Like just using Final Cut without every time I go over a plugin, it spins. Without every time I go over something, it stops to render. Without it having to load and not like. It was like getting seconds and minutes of my life back, and I was just smiling the whole time.
Lori, can you hold your breath and wait?
So I'm thinking about things like World of Warcraft just recently announced that they are already set up
out of the box.
Yeah.
And it made me think of things like everybody knows that Macs aren't meant for gaming, but now I'm starting to think maybe Macs can be meant for gaming right now. And maybe this is opening up a whole new world in terms of what is possible on a Mac and whether or not people would be interested in playing games on a Mac. And a lot of it has been limitations in what, the Mac could do in terms of, a dedicated GPU and things like that. So I don't know. It seems... It's crazy.
Single-threaded performance better than almost anything, including
maybe Ryzen 3. Maybe Ryzen 3.
Yeah, I mean, even for mobile, this is a killer. But even for not mobile, for desktop, this is a killer.
The WebKit render speeds were ridiculous.
Multi-threading is also very strong. Multi-core is very strong. And I think the GPUs are stronger than people thought, too. Is that been your experience, Renee?
Yeah, I mean, so...
Certainly better than any other integrated graphics. I mean, if you're comparing
that's what I was going to say. Like, compared to Intel... Yeah, it's like it runs laps around it, then goes and does calisthenics in the middle of the field while it's waiting for the Intel ones to finish. Like some people are like, well, you didn't compare it to RDNA 2. You didn't compare it to Ampere. Yeah. And it makes me want to do a wellness check for r/hardware at that point, because those are like $1,000 cards with literally the Shield helicarrier as their ventilation, and those are 300 watts of power draw. This is literally a low power system, and it's doing performance that no longer makes you regret. It's like the MacBook Air just feels like you're not making any compromises anymore, and with zero fan, and that's pretty amazing.
One of the things that distinguished 2020. For me anyway, was at the end of the year, Apple kept announcing new products. First, it was a new iPad. Then it was new iPhones. Then it was new computers. It seems like there was always one more thing. Let's take a look. The long-rumored AirPods Max came out. But before I tell you all the features, cut to the bottom line, $549.
Whoa,
that seems a lot.
That's the cheapest you can get on
that's
there.
A lot of money.
That's a lot. Yes, Merlin. That's a lot of money. It seems expensive.
Wow.
How much are the Bose Quiet Comforts? Because that's what they're going up against, right?
They're all they're all like 300, 350. The Sony's.
The Sony's.
There are headphones that are more expensive than this. You can spend a ludicrous amount of money on audio. You can buy $1 million setups and they'll offer to sell you accessories.
I'll be the last person to criticize expensive headphones. I have a pair of very expensive Hi-Fi Man headphones that are great because instead of buying a very, very fancy stereo, if you get really, really good headphones and a good input, you can get great sound. And so these Hi-Fi Men, which are magnetic planar technology, sound great. But that's not what these are.
Most people don't know those. Like the biggest issue for me with this is most people have no idea that those headphones exist. For most people, the high-end are like the Sonys and the Bose. And for Apple, Apple they look at as an affordable luxury brand. And then when Apple only introduces the high-end, like if they only introduce the Mac Pro and there's no Mac Mini, or they only have an iPhone XS and it's not the iPhone 11, you feel like that compact has been broken and they're only giving you the luxury and you want them and you can't afford them and you get really angry really fast.
Scooter X says, no, come on, guys. It's simple. Buy a Mac Pro and a Pro Display XDR on your Apple card and the cash back, you could buy the headphones. Free.
I mean, they're computationally, like they have a bunch of technology inside them that is expensive, but people aren't used to paying for the accelerometer and the gyroscope and the 8 different microphones and there's 2 H1 Apple Silicon 10-core audio processors. Nobody who buys headphones is used to paying for that.
Each cup has its own 10-core processor.
Its own 10-core system in package, like an Apple Watch.
That's the problem that Apple's up against. Nobody is. I think the HomePod really proved that nobody is impressed with all the stuff you put into the press release. All they care about is maybe you put $1,000 worth of incredible technology into this. If it only sounds $8 more expensive than something that costs half as much, you lose. And I think that most people are going to regard this as a set of headphones for, and I mean this in a positive way, as for audio muggles, people who are just like, I want headphones that sound good. I want them to have really good noise canceling. I want them to sound really, really great. But once you get into the rarefied air of $550, yes, there are headphones that cost that much and more, but these are for the audiophiles, and I'm not sure if the audiophiles are going to think that these headphones are in their class. Well, it remains to be seen. But I just.
So that's the question: do these sound $550 good?
Yeah.
If they did, I don't care about the technology. They've got to sound.
Or do they have that much brand cachet?
So this is for who? This could be a game on the show. Trick Leo into buying these. This is.
Trick. We just gotta wait. A few minutes.
I mean, the most basic thing, Leo, you need it for your work.
No. My work is broke.
Try it. It works,
my work is
really
broke.
well.
I can't.
Yeah.
In fact, the reason I can't buy this is because we don't have any money. So that's not going to work. So
if you're the office Secret Santa and you drew Leo's name.
Oh, there you go. Maybe
no pressure.
I should tell Lisa this is what I want for Christmas.
So who is it for? Is that the question?
Who's it for? Should I get excited about a unique dual neodymium ring magnet motor?
Ooh,
sounds good.
That's rare earth. That's a rare earth.
It's rare earth.
Yeah.
It's rare earth. Mm-hmm. You don't know how many barefoot children in Botswana were involved in the manufacture of this. It could have been, that's expensive stuff. Actually, did Apple say now that they're getting their rare earths in ecologically sustainable ways?
I think they're working on reusing all the rare earths. I don't know how far they've gotten, but repurposing, I think is the term.
Does it say if it does the spatial thing?
Yes, it does spatial.
It does.
It's spatial.
I think that is magic. I mean, there's not much stuff you can use it for right now.
But if I were watching Lord of the Rings on the TV and it would give me Atmos in my head.
It's different. So the TV is static. It doesn't move. And the AirPods are different because, so with the TV, you're sitting in front of the TV, and regardless of how you move, you expect it to come from the TV. But with
you find yourself doing this a lot to test it out, and do this. But the crazy part is, so I turned it on, I got it. I finally got the firmware update. I was so excited to try this. And something's cool when you go, it's not working, honestly. Because at first you go like, oh, it's not working. which means it's so subtle. But you do this, and you're like, it's a witch. There's a witch in my iPad. What's happening? But it sounds so freaking cool, and it's not. It doesn't feel like a trick. Like with those kinds of things, it's sort of like like when 3D movies came out and you could get a TV. They mentioned this on the Blank Check podcast recently. Used to be there was like a 3D button where it'd simulate 3D on a non-3D film. And you're like, oh, that's not really the thing. That ain't it, Chief. But you put these things in and you're watching a movie, like it sounds amazing. And I mean subtle in the best possible way. You've tried it? Everybody's tried it here?
I have not because I don't. I have AirPods Pro, but somewhere I can't find them.
Because like if you've got the sensors in the AirPods and you've got them in the device, and so the gyroscopes and accelerometers communicate with each other. And if you're moving the iPad, like let's say you're watching like this and then you lean back, your expectation now is that the audio, or you're just moving it sideways, the audio should still come from the person speaking. The center channel should still be the relative, not absolute center channel then. So as you move it around, it is adjusting where the audio is coming from so that it still feels like it's coming from the device you're holding, which just doesn't have to happen on a television set because that's a big static object. And it really messes with your brain at first. And then once your brain locks onto it, that's your new expectation and everything else sounds broken.
I went into my fancy 4K movies that I had on an iOS device, and I think I was doing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it was pretty trippy the first time.
So it's like surround. It gives you surround sound, but they're in your headphones or AirPods.
Relative spatial audio. Yeah, so relative Atmos basically.
Relative to what?
Relative to where you're holding the device and turning your head. So if your head turns, the device stays spatially where it is.
Well, who cares about that?
Yeah, that was
because it really sounds like it's in the room with you. It really sounds.
But like it is in the room with you. Wait a minute.
It's like to my preference is one of the reasons why I put headphones on is so that it doesn't matter like where my head is and where I'm turning relative to the actual device itself. I'll always get like beautiful like standard like balanced separation. So it's a wonderful piece of technological magic. But in terms of placing the audio as though it has the illusion of originating from the device it's playing from, that's not something that I really value.
You know what stays in place when you move your head around? TV speakers.
Vinyl. I thought you were going to say vinyl.
Yeah, vinyl. I mean, so I thought it was going to simulate a surround system with the left right behind me and up above me and it does do that.
Yep.
In addition to that,
it's hard to describe its depth. It really, the words you're using remind me of like, it's quadraphonic. It sounds like it's all around you.
Exactly.
And that's true to an extent, but it's just more like it sounds whatever the room sound, when you imagine the room you're watching on TV, that's like what it sounds like. And it doesn't feel gimmicky to me. I mean, obviously everybody's got their own preferences, but I think it's amazing and I can't wait. That alongside like being able to add a second pair of iPods, like when my kid and I are watching, the kind of media that my wife would just assume we not be watching.
Right.
It's going to be really cool to get to put those in and watch that.
I was thinking I could pair these to my Apple TV, right? And I could have two sets. So my wife and I could both be wearing headphones while we're watching TV, which is something.
But no spatial audio on Apple TV yet. But I think that's.
Really? You only get spatial audio?
No, it's only on iOS devices. Atmos. That's the frustrating.
It does the Atmos, but not. So this is where people get confused. It does the Atmos, but it doesn't do the relativistic thing because the TV never moves. So if you just move around, you don't expect where the source of the audio to be moving. But if you're watching on your iPad and you move it, it still wants to come from the same position for you.
You're not convincing me yet, boys.
And it's that easy to explain to consumers.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know that.
You know how you wish your TV moved? Check it out, $500. How many you want? Be honest. 3?
You're not. Plus, you'll be happy to know we're not ruining the environment by giving you a free cable or free charger. You're welcome.
This is extremely, extremely rare earth. We recommend that you get one for your desk, one for your house, one for each of your your yachts, including the wax yacht, because you're going to want to have those separately. They'll charge separately. We have a separate charger for that, and then we have a charge adapter that will generate the feeling of power in a room. That's $35 for the dongle adapter.
I just want to point out I could get 10 neodymium magnets for $15 on Amazon. So you got to
be careful. Be careful. Those
do
magnets,
not swallow
which
those.
I love.
I know. Do not swallow.
They will put. I have one here that is terrifying.
Well, it's been quite a year. Yes, it has. And I hope you have enjoyed our best of 2020. Thanks to our producers, Karsten Bondi and Micah Sargent. Thanks to our editors. And there have been too many to mention. Mostly I just can't remember their names. But thank you to Kevin and John and Anthony and the whole team here who put together this show all year long and who are working hard out of their homes. Hey, it's going to be a good 2021, I think. Things are starting to look up a little bit. I hope you stay safe. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. We'll be back next week with our last MacBreak Weekly of 2020, maybe a look ahead to some of the Apple stuff we can expect in 2021. I'm Leo Laporte. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays. We'll see you next week. Now, I have to say it every time. Break time is over, so it's time to get back to work. No, I said it wrong. I never will get that right. I was looking for the rat hole music, and I think it is somewhere. It is somewhere.
Andy and I can sing
I think.
Rat hole.
Oh, this is the short one. I want the long one.
Are you preempting rat holes, Leo?
There's a really long rat. Oh, he could play it again. He could play it.
Might be an F major.
Rat hole.
Then there's a long one that goes on.
Who's open in the rat hole? You know he's open in the rat hole. All right.
That's it. We got that. We got that. We got it. We got it. Okay.